Chapter 72-70. Seeing Qian Yangyi's sudden change in expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart couldn't help but tremble. She subconsciously thought of Gong Jun. Sure enough, all unscrupulous businessmen had the ability to change their expressions like this. I wonder what kind of payment young Master Qian would like? 300 high-grade blood spirit stones. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes widened. 300? That's right, 300. Qian Yangyi nodded. His expression was calm as usual. You should know that I'm not cheap. Moreover, you didn't give me much information. The three of them are cultivators who just appeared in the crossing immortal region. Obviously, I can't find them directly with my past contact. I have to spend more effort to find them. If I hadn't misunderstood you yesterday, the price would have doubled. Qian Yangyi raised his eyebrows. The reason for this discount is because of what happened yesterday. I apologize to you guys. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was speechless. 300 high-grade blood spiritual stones was a sky-high price. She had always thought that Gong Jun's shop was a bit black-hearted, but compared to this guy in front of her, Gong Jun was simply too heartless. As the manager of the mine, his monthly salary was only 2 high-grade blood spirit stones. However, this guy directly asked for $300, which was equivalent to working as a manager for more than 10 years. What? If you can't even accept this price, then forget it. Qian Yangyi waved his hand and handed the painting over. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. Okay, I agree. Di Beichen nodded calmly and placed the Cosmos sack on the table. We'll come back in a month. Great. Qian Yangyi's face revealed a refreshing smile. When the time comes, I'll be waiting for you here. Don't worry, I won't make any mistakes in what I promised. Thank you very much. After leaving Qian Yangyi's residence, Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a comfortable smile. Previously, the consul had told them that Qian Yangyi had always been very good at asking around. As long as he promised something, he would often succeed. So far, there had not been a case of failure. As long as they could find Xiao Sou, many problems could be solved quickly. I hope Qian Yangyi can really give us the information we want. 1 month is not long, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. He does have such strength. Looking at Di Beichen's serious expression, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that he must have observed something. However, as long as Qian Yangyi could really give them the information, it was enough. The two didn't stay for long. Since Qian Yangyi had already promised them, they didn't need to spend any more effort to find him. It was also good to return to the mine as soon as possible. Now the situation in the mine was basically stable. With Zhou Su and Lei Jun in charge, they didn't need to worry too much. However, they had been away for several days. If they didn't come back for such a long time, people would be suspicious. Since they had decided to gain a foothold in the mine, they had to spend some effort. At the same time, Gong Jun couldn't help but frown after hearing the news reported by his subordinate. You mean that Qing Devil has sent people to the Duxian domain? Yes. This guy is quite fast. Gong Jun narrowed his eyes. Through this period of time, he had learned about the grudge between boss and Qing Devil. Chapter 72-71. From the looks of it, that fellow has a strong desire to kill Master. That's why he couldn't wait to rush over after hearing the news. Young Master Gong, should we get rid of this group of people? The man asked. After thinking for a while, Gong Jun shook his head and said, Don't do that now. This is the grudge between Master and Qing Devil. If we act rashly, we will definitely give ourselves away. What's more, this is Master's own experience. If such a situation occurs, it may not be completely without benefit. But these fellows aren't weak at all. Among Master's group, only 2 have broken through to the elementary celestial stage. The others aren't a match for them. There was a trace of hesitation on the man's face. His brows were filled with worry. Gong Jun smiled and waved his hand. The situation may not be as bad as you think. If it gets to that point, it won't be too late for us to make a move. But once our people make a move at that time, won't we be exposed? The man looked at Gong Jun in confusion. Could it be that young Master Gong feels that it's time to tell Master everything? Of course not. Gong Jun shook his head. Before Master unseals his own memories, let's not tell anyone about this. Then what are you doing? Don't forget, Master has always been a strong person. Gong Jun smiled. In his mind, the image of that cold, determined, and invincible man appeared. Wherever he was, others could only choose to avoid him. Even though his master had been sealed, his master was still his master. Gong Jun had never doubted his strength. Looking at Gong Jun's confident appearance, the man also recalled the scene when he first followed his master. His master had always been invincible. What you need to pay attention to now is the fourth prince's movements. Gong Jun's eyes darkened, and a trace of sternness flashed through his eyes. In the years that Master was not around, the fourth prince has been quite active. Now that he knows that Master has appeared, he can no longer hold himself back. We must prevent him from doing anything crazy. This subordinate understands. The man nodded seriously and said, "The first princess has also received some news. I'm afraid she will also intervene. If we meet her, what should we do?" Gong Jun pondered for a moment and said, "The eldest princess's men. Think of a way to let them meet the fourth prince's men. We'll take the opportunity to escape." This. The man looked a little embarrassed. "What we need to do is to protect our master." In Gong Jun's eyes there was a trace of comfort. "Don't you think Master is happier than before?" Hearing this, the man paused slightly and his aura also paused. Indeed, the former master was invincible, cold, and biting cold. No one dared to approach him. As followers, they only had worship in front of such a master. They looked up at the high and mighty man with reverence. But now, the master had a completely different feeling. He stood beside that woman, gentle and tolerant. They had never seen such a smile before, but now they often saw it. If one were to ask what kind of master was the most domineering, it would naturally be the former master. But from the master's point of view, perhaps the current life was what he wanted the most. As subordinates, how could they destroy all of this? Gong Jun noticed the man's stunned expression and knew that he also understood the key point. So, what we need to protect is not only the master, but also everything that the master cares about. Chapter 72-72. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the mine, many stewards took the initiative to greet them. No one asked about their whereabouts. After calling for their subordinates and looking through the notebook of the past few days, the two of them felt at ease. Everything was going smoothly and there was nothing wrong. It seems that after Yuan Gang's death, everyone has quieted down. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on the soft couch. No one was looking for trouble, and Qian Yangyi had already accepted the mission. No matter how one looked at it, this was good progress. "You're finally back." Zhou Su's voice sounded from outside the door. "Where have you been all this time? Don't you know how to say hello before you come in?" Di Baichen raised his eyebrows. "We're all men, what's there to greet? Could it be that you're hiding a woman here?" Zhou Su chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. She was a woman. Did this mean that Baichen was hiding her? "If you say that Gu Jian is hiding a woman, I would believe it. But if you say that you are hiding a woman, I really don't believe it." Lei Jun also casually walked to the side and sat down. "Let me tell you a piece of news. Not long after your Du Bing and the others left, these two fellows also died." Bailey Hongzhuang looked calm. "How did you know?" "I was worried that they would be restless, so I sent people to keep an eye on them." Lei Jun replied, "You haven't been here for too long, so you may not have enough understanding. The two of them have been with Yuan Gang for a long time, and they are completely trusted. If this kind of thing happened to others, perhaps the others would have already left. However, these two people would definitely not let it go. They would definitely think of a way to come back for revenge. However, the people I sent out soon told me that the two of them were dead. As for who killed them, I don't know. These two people usually follow Yuan gang to commit crimes. There must be a lot of people who hate them. Maybe when they left here, their enemies would already be scrambling to catch up. It's not strange for such a situation to occur. Zhou Su said indifferently, this is a good thing. Lei Jun looked at the calm faces of Di Baichen and Xia Shaoluo, and a vague idea flashed through his mind. He quickly grasped the idea and immediately understood. You guys are the ones who did it, right? Zhou Su was stunned. How is that possible? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. Does it matter who did it? His calm tone was as if he was narrating an insignificant matter. The man's calm face was like an ancient well without any ripples. This almost disguised admission made Lei Jun and Lei Jun completely understand. It turned out that from the beginning, the two of them had no intention of letting Du Bing and Yang Jiong go. The reason why he said that was just to make the other stewards feel at ease. These two people had really planned everything so well that not even a drop of water could leak out. Now all the stewards thought that the two of them were far more magnanimous than Yuan gang, but they didn't know that the two of them had already completely solved the hidden dangers. I finally understand. Lei Jun sighed. No wonder you can see Yuan gang's job and take it. You don't have to worry. We have always been sincere to our friends. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, and the smile on her lips was sincere and warm. They were fierce and ruthless to their enemies, but they were always sincere to their friends. Chapter 72-73. What did you say? Gong Jun suddenly raised his voice and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Just asking for a piece of information costs 300 high-grade blood spirit stones? The asking price is indeed quite high, Di Baichen said frankly. It's not just high. It's simply too high. Gong Jun said with a pained expression. Prodigal, he's definitely a prodigal. Di Xiaofeng and the others couldn't help but laugh when they saw Gong Jun's bloodshot eyes, as if someone close to him had died. Sure enough, this guy cared about money the most. What kind of people are those fellows? I'm going to look for him. It's simply a black shop. We haven't been able to find Xiao Sou's whereabouts. Now that someone can help us find her, although the price is higher, it's still not bad, Bai Li Yanche said. Over the past few days, he had been running all over the area, but there was no news at all. Do you know what 300 high-grade blood spirit stones mean? Gong Jun lamented. Our shop is already shady enough, but this guy is even more shady than me. I can't stand it. I'll wait for a month. If the news isn't accurate by then, I'll go and find that guy. Everyone. Sure enough, Gong Jun's way of thinking had always been so different. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lord Qing Devil, we're almost certain that Di Baichen and the others are in the crossing immortal domain. Do you plan to? I haven't gone out for a long time since I came back. It's time for me to go out for a walk. The corners of Azure Demon's mouth curled into a faint smile. However, his subordinates could not help but feel shocked when they saw this smile. Every time the Qing Devil smiled like that, it meant that blood was about to be spilled. They didn't know how these two guys from the crossing immortal domain offended the Qing Devil, but they were really unlucky to have been remembered by the Qing Devil for so long. Send someone to keep an eye on them. Don't let them escape. Yes. Compared with Qing Devil's aggressiveness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had no idea that danger was approaching them. In their opinion, they were bound to meet the Qing Devil, but they would only meet her after they went to the immortal realm. They didn't expect that they would meet her so early. Say Wu, I think someone seems to be watching us recently. You should be careful when you go out. Inside the house, Xu Yu's expression was a little complicated. He had a vague feeling that something was not quite right. He couldn't pinpoint the exact location, but his many years of experience gave him a feeling that they were in some danger. Xiao So chuckled when she heard that. Master, aren't you being too cautious? We're in the crossing celestial domain now, not the upper realm. Who would target us? Xiao Sudong nodded slightly. Indeed, we have always kept a low profile here. No one will notice us. Looking at the confident looks of the two, Shu Yu was also a little hesitant. In fact, this was just his intuition, and there was no evidence. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed impossible. You'd better be careful these days. The D family's strength can't be underestimated. You failed to kill them last time, so they have been more vigilant. Xiao Soa's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness when she heard that. So what? They stay in the upper realm, and their strength can't be compared with ours. If that old man wasn't lucky, he would have been killed by me. Chapter 72-74. Xiao So narrowed her eyes. She hated Bailey Hongzhuang the most. Even if she had to spend the rest of her life, she would drag Bailey Hongzhuang down to hell. She wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to experience the feeling of losing a loved one. Last time, Lan Yunxiao managed to escape, but he wouldn't be so lucky again. One day, she would kill everyone that Bailey Hongzhuang cared about and leave her with nothing. Didn't you say that the people sent by the D family are also very strong? Last time, you almost died in their hand. Shu Yu was a little worried. He knew that Xiao So was becoming more and more paranoid. Hatred had already clouded her heart. The D family still has a few people who are good at fighting. Xiao So frowned slightly. Di Xiaofeng's strength has also become very strong. This was what she didn't understand the most. Her strength had only improved greatly after coming to the crossing immortal domain. This was because the origin energy here was much denser and the laws of heaven and earth were much more complete. Cultivating in this environment would allow one to improve much faster than cultivating in the upper realm. She had always understood Di Xiaofeng's strength. Logically speaking, after such a long time of hard work, she should have already left Di Xiaofeng behind. However, the last time they met, she found that Di Xiaofeng's strength was not inferior to hers. This was the strangest part. Sister, could it be that the Di family has also found a way to go to other planes? After a few years of change, Xiao Sudong had lost his initial childishness. His figure had become tall and strong, and his temperament had become more stable. How is this possible? Xiao So retorted without hesitation. They don't have that ability at all. Master has been in contact with the crossing immortal domain for so many years, but the D family doesn't know anything about it. Even if they do ascend, they will only come to the crossing immortal region. They will definitely be captured and forced to mine. We don't even have to do anything, they will turn into idiot. Shu Yu could not help but nod when he heard this. Perhaps his worries were unnecessary. No matter how the D clan thought about it, they would never think that they were not even on the same plane. No matter how hard they searched, they would never be able to find them. In short, it's best if you don't go to the upper realm as often as possible. Right now, the most important thing is to improve your cultivation, Shu Yu advised. I know, Xiao So said impatiently. Seeing this, Shu Yu shook his head. He knew that Xiao So would not listen to him at all. His only hope was Xiao Sudong. Master, will we be able to enter the immortal region after breaking through to the elementary immortal stage? Xiao So could not help but ask. She knew that Qing Devil was from the immortal realm. All this time, she had been hoping that Qing Devil might have already returned to the immortal region. As long as she could go to the immortal region, she would have a chance to meet Qing Devil. That's right. Shu Yu nodded. Only cultivators in the elementary immortal stage can enter the immortal region. But my strength hasn't improved recently. Xiao So frowned. She thought that she had spent a lot of time on cultivation, but her cultivation had not improved at all. This made her very unhappy. Shu Yu glanced at Xiao So, but didn't say anything. With her slack cultivation method, it was indeed very difficult for her to make a breakthrough. It's difficult to break through to the elementary immortal stage. Once you break through, you will become an immortal. Naturally, you will need to spend more time and energy. Chapter 72-75. During this month, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had an exceptionally peaceful time. Ever since Imperial Returning Restaurant launched a new dish, its business had been getting better and better. Now, even Ritasi brothel was no match for it. Almost every day when it was mealtime, the entire restaurant would be packed with people. Gong Jun was all smiles every day, counting the money he had earned at night. On this day, Di Baichen and Li Chia were having their meal at the returning Qin restaurant. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared before them. Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised for a moment. "You are Qian Yangyi's manservant." The man nodded. "Young master said that he has found the person you asked him to help you find. I'll leave this to you." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled and took the letter. Only more than half of the 1 month had passed. Qian Yangyi's news came so quickly, which was beyond their expectations. He opened the letter and saw an address written on it. "Young master said that as long as you go there, you will find the person you are looking for." So fast? Gong Jun couldn't help but come over. Could there be a mistake? Our young master's information has always been accurate. There is absolutely no problem. The manservant raised his head proudly and said in a firm tone, "Thank you very much." Di Baichen put away the letter and said, "Please tell him that we will pay him a visit after we solve the problem. Farewell, young master." After the servant left, Di Xiaofeng and the others rushed over and gathered together. Is this guy really that powerful? Ziren was in disbelief. So many of them had been searching for so long without any results, but this guy had only used such a short amount of time to give a definite answer. That's what he's best at. Of course we can't compare. Ling Er's voice was as cold as ever. "Boss, why are you still going to look for this guy when the time comes?" Gong Jun also heard Di Baichen's words and couldn't help but ask. If this news is true, then it proves that there's almost nothing in the Crossing Immortal region that he can't find out. Xiao Sou is the problem we need to solve the most right now. Other than her, we also need to understand the situation in Crossing Immortal Domain. Instead of beating around the bush to get information from Huang Tiangue, it would be better to ask him directly. Hearing this, everyone nodded slightly. Right now, they did not know much about the situation. If they could understand everything clearly, it would undoubtedly be for the best. "So, we're going to be ripped off again?" Gong Jun couldn't help but ask. "Di Baichen, I remember you guys saying that this guy's 300 high-grade devouring spirit stones was the discounted price. I'm afraid there won't be such a discount next time." Ziren's expression became somewhat indescribable. He patted Gong Jun's shoulder and said, "Make money well. I'll leave this task to you." Gong Jun, "I'll go." That day, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang left for the location stated in the letter after explaining the matters of the mine. Di Xiaofeng and the others naturally went with them. Xiao Sou was undoubtedly their common enemy. Now that they finally found her whereabouts, they naturally couldn't miss out on this opportunity. Gong Jun also wanted to follow, but Ziren and the others sent him to guard returning Qin Tower. As the shopkeeper, if he left and something happened, returning Qin Tower's people wouldn't be able to handle it. Chapter 72-76. You've left me behind again. Gong Jun stood at the door and looked at the departing figures of the crowd. His face was full of indignation. Last time, these fellows had abandoned him just like that. Now they actually did it again. Wasn't it just because he couldn't take the restaurant away? Haha, I see Gong Jun's gloomy look. It's as if he wants to spit out a mouthful of blood. Ziren could not help but laugh out loud. This guy was really too interesting. Stop laughing at Gong Jun. Shangguan Yingying shook her head helplessly. If Gong Jun loses his temper, you won't be able to stop him. Don't worry, we have Baichen. Ziren smirked. Baichen was like a shield. If you continue to cause trouble for him, I won't protect you, Di Baichen suddenly said. Ziren's face fell. Don't be like this. Gong Jun can make money. What can you do? Shangguan Yingying said disdainfully. I can eat. After several days of traveling, they finally arrived at the location mentioned in the letter. It's the courtyard in front. Di Beichen looked at the inconspicuous courtyard in front of him, and his eyes became sharp and cold. Everyone's footsteps unconsciously stopped as their gazes locked onto the courtyard. Their emotions became rather complicated. Hopefully, they weren't mistaken. Bai Li Yanche stepped forward and knocked on the door of the courtyard. Hearing the commotion outside the door, Xiao Sou was a little puzzled. They had never interacted with other people, so logically speaking, no one would come looking for them. Who is it? Almost at the moment when they heard this voice, the eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others narrowed. Even though they hadn't seen Xiao Sou for a long time, when they heard this voice, they immediately recognized that this person was Xiao Sou. It was true. Everyone looked at each other. Qian Yangyi really didn't disappoint them. Di Xiaofeng's lips curled up. It seems that the 300 high-grade blood spirit stones were well spent. Xiao Sou found that there was no answer from the outside, but the knocking did not stop. She felt a little strange. She didn't think too much about it. Instead, she opened the door to the courtyard. No one would look for them in the crossing immortal domain. However, when she opened the door and saw the familiar face, her expression changed. Why are you here? Miss Xiao, you really made us look for you. Di Xiaofeng sneered as he looked around the courtyard. Perhaps Xu Yu and the others were also here. Xiao Sou's face turned pale as countless thoughts flashed through her mind. She was clearly unable to believe that she would actually meet Di Beichen and the others in the crossing immortal domain. Now, it's time for us to settle the score. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold as she stared at Xiao Sou. Last time, Xiao Sou had taken the opportunity to escape. This time, she would not let that happen again. Bailey Hongzhuang, if it weren't for the Di family's background, what right do you have to challenge me? Xiao Sou's eyes were filled with hatred. From her point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang had stolen everything from her. Di Beichen was originally her fiancé. If Bailey Hongzhuang had not appeared, this handsome and outstanding man would have treated her like a treasure. He would not be like this now, with only disgust in his eyes. So what? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her beautiful eyebrows. Her delicate face now exuded a jade-like luster. Her radiance was shining, and her beauty was indescribable. Chapter 72-77. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refute. She was too lazy to refute. She didn't want to say that even without the Di family, Xiao Sou was still no match for her. Because no matter what the woman in front of her said, it was useless. She only believed in her own imagination. Sure enough, the provocation after the admission angered Xiao Sou even more. She didn't expect this woman to be shameless to this extent. Shangguan Yingying and Linger both had a look of admiration. Sure enough, Hongzhuang's move was ruthless enough. You are simply shameless. Compared to you, I'm not worthy. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was neither salty nor light. At the same time, Xiao Sudong and Xu Yu couldn't help but come out after hearing the movement outside. So what happened? However, when the two of them came out and saw the familiar figures in the courtyard, their expressions changed drastically. Xu Yu's heart jumped. He finally understood the origin of his previous uneasiness. The problem actually appeared here. Sure enough, you are all here. Di Beichen's biting cold and sharp eyes swept over the three people, and the three people who were looked at couldn't help but tremble. Di Beichen, you are really amazing. You can actually chase us here. Xiao Sudong took a step forward. His dark eyes met Di Beichen's eyes. His handsome face showed no signs of backing down. If I don't appear here, do you expect me to wait for your sneak attacks every time? Di Beichen laughed in a low voice, revealing a bloodthirsty taste. Xiao Sudong was speechless. Xiao Sou had indeed been thinking of ways to attack the Di family every few days, but he didn't expect Di Beichen to have the ability to chase them here. Hand over the secret key. The biting cold voice was sharp and decisive, like a judge, exuding an undeniable meaning. In a split second, Xiao Su only felt a strong and cold aura enveloping her, causing her to feel a chill from the bottom of her heart. She unconsciously took a step back. After not seeing him for a while, this man's aura had become even stronger. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to subdue people without a fight. Why should I give it to you? If you hand it over to me now, I can still let you die a quick death. Di Bei Chen's voice was cold, without the slightest bit of pity. Xiao Su's expression froze, and hatred burst out from the bottom of her eyes. This man would only show his gentle and doting side to Bailey Hongzhuang, but for other women, there was only sternness. Then let's see which of us is stronger. Xiao Su looked up with disdain, hatred surging in her eyes. She would definitely avenge her clan's extermination. Xiao Sudong also stood up and looked at Xiao Su. Let me deal with him. Xiao Su nodded. Xiao Sudong had been cultivating diligently during this time, and with Xu Yu's careful nurturing, his strength had increased a lot and had already surpassed her. Standing in front of Di Beichen, Xiao Sudong coldly stared at him. How about we fight one-on-one? Di Beichen looked up indifferently. As you wish. Di Xiaofeng and the others did not stop this. In their opinion, even if Xiao Sudong had a good opportunity during this time, it was impossible for him to be compared to Di Beichen. At the same time, Xiao Su also came in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Do you dare to fight with me? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Why not? I'm afraid you will regret it. Chapter 72-78. Di Beichen's posture was as tall and straight as a pine tree. He stood motionless in the same place. Unlike Xiao Sudong, who was ready to fight, he was ready to fight. However, it was his unmoving appearance that made Xiao Sudong feel a huge pressure. Once upon a time, his strength was not Di Beichen's opponent at all. Now, after several years of hard work, even his master praised his great improvement. He believed that he would not be the same as before. Di Beichen, take this. Xiao Sudong's figure flew forward, and his vigorous elemental energy instantly exploded. His fist suddenly attacked, bringing with it a terrifying elemental energy ripple. Radiant Sun Stage. When Xu Yu saw this scene, a trace of gratification appeared in her eyes. Xiao Sudong was undoubtedly his most outstanding disciple. To be able to improve his strength to such an extent in just a few years, he was already very strong. Others might not know, but he knew very well how much effort Xiao Sudong had put in order to achieve today's achievement. Ever since the extermination of the Xiao family, Xiao Sudong had changed from the ignorant youth to the forbearing and determined appearance he had today. He believed that even someone as talented as Di Beichen could not be his opponent now. However, when he noticed the calm faces of Di Xiaofeng and the others on the other side, a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. Why did he not see the slightest bit of worry in these people's eyes? Xiao Sudong's speed was extremely fast, and his attack arrived in the blink of an eye. However, when he realized that his attack was about to land on Di Beichen, and Di Beichen did not move at all, a trace of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. His aura had already firmly locked onto Di Beichen. The reason why he did not move was not because he did not want to move, but because he could not move at all. How could he, who had always been cultivating in the upper realm, be compared to him? However, just as he was getting more and more proud in his heart and expected his attack to destroy Di Beichen, he suddenly realized that Di Beichen had moved. The palm that seemed to be full of flaws was not enough to be used. However, when the palm landed on his body, the terrifying power caused his heart to tremble. The domineering power seeped into his internal organs through his skin. It was simply unbearable. Like a hot knife through butter, it was unstoppable. Bang! Xiao Sudong's figure flew out in midair and landed heavily on the ground, emitting a shocking sound. How is this possible? Xiao Sudong looked at Di Beichen in disbelief. That terrifying power was like a mountain that he could not shake. He was almost certain that this was not a power that a Radiant Sun Realm cultivator should possess. Initial celestial stage? Shuyu raised her voice. Her heart was filled with shock. A mere palm strike was enough to make Xiao Sudong fall into such a state. Other than the elementary celestial stage, there was no other possibility. Just being in the Radiant Sun Realm is already incredible. I might not even be a match for him in a one-on-one fight, yet he wants to fight Beichen alone? Xiren was clearly enjoying the show. The aura of a Radiant Sun Realm cultivator exploded. Xiao Sudong, who had been pale from the heavy blow, turned even paler when he realized that Xiren was also in the same cultivation level. Could it be? Di Beichen and the others had been more fortunate than them all these years? Initial celestial stage. That was the goal that he had been fighting for. Even with his talent, it would take him decades to break through. Chapter 72-79. Previously, he had asked his master, and his master had said that as long as there was a chance of a breakthrough, he was already a genius. Even if it took a few decades, it would still be an excellent result. However, he had never expected that in just a few years Di Beichen had already broken through to the elementary celestial stage. Comparing the two, what else could he use to compete? After Xiao Sou noticed this scene, a look of amazement appeared in her eyes. Elementary celestial stage. What kind of strength was this? If it were not for Bailey Hongzhuang, this outstanding man would have belonged to her. Go to hell. A sinister look bloomed in her eyes, and she rushed forward. She wanted to ruin Bailey Hongzhuang's face, and see how she would be able to seduce people in the future. Sigh, another one looking for a beating. Shangguan Yingying sighed and shook her head. Xiao Sou and the others are indeed siblings. When it comes to not believing the truth, they are exactly the same, Ling said calmly. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang used the same move as Di Beichen. For Xiao Sou, whose strength was not even comparable to Xiao Sudong's, she did not need to spend much effort. Xiao Sou went to accompany Xiao Sudong. Pfft! Xiao Sou spat out a mouthful of blood, and her expression became extremely ugly. She was even more in disbelief. She did not dare to believe what she had come into contact with. She would not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang was in the elementary celestial stage. The brilliant sun stage, compared to your brother, the gap between you and your brother is not small, Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. Impossible, Di Beichen aside, you definitely can't be in the elementary celestial stage. Xiao Sou roared crazily, with a hint of hysteria. Compared to the pain of being seriously injured, she was more concerned about the humiliation at this moment. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was a real humiliation to her. A woman with no background, whom she looked down on, had actually reached this stage. It was simply a fantasy. You are still the same as before. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were slightly cold, and she stepped forward and said, "Hand over the secret key." She was not in the mood to waste time with Xiao Sou, and was only concerned about the secret key. If it weren't for this secret key, Xiao Se Wu wouldn't have been worth their time and effort. Even if I die, I will not let you have the secret key. Xiao Se Wu glared fiercely at Bailey Hongzhuang. Today she would definitely die. Even so, she would not let Bailey Hongzhuang die happily. I want the D clan's legacy to end completely, and you will regret it for the rest of your life. Di Beichen frowned. Xiao Sou was simply like a lunatic, and it would be very difficult to get information from her. Di Xiaofeng stepped forward, and his eyes locked onto Shu Yu. If you hand over the secret key, we can let Shu Yu live, otherwise. As soon as he said this, Xiao Sudong's expression changed. Master. The reason why they were able to live until now was all because of their master. If something happened to their master, then Shu Yu's face was also very pale. He never thought that such a situation would occur. Don't try to threaten us, it's useless. Xiao Sou refused without hesitation. Sister, master is innocent. Xiao Sudong hurriedly looked at Xiao So. If it was not for them, Master would not have been involved in this smoke. So what? Xiao So's crazed expression did not diminish. I want them to regret it for the rest of their lives. The secret key cannot be handed over. Xiao Sudong's face was ashen. How can you do this? Chapter 7280. Xiao Sudong ignored Xiao So and looked at Di Xiaofeng seriously. As long as I give you the secret key, will you really let Master live? Noticing the man's sincere appearance, Di Xiaofeng looked at Xiao Sudong in a higher light. After not seeing him for so long, Xiao Sudong had indeed improved a lot. I can guarantee it. Okay. Xiao Sudong seemed to have made a difficult decision and his gaze became firm. The secret key is slap. Shut up. The sudden sound startled everyone. When they looked again, they saw an obvious palm print on Xiao Sudong's face. Sis? You absolutely can't tell them the whereabouts of the secret key. Otherwise, Father and the others won't be able to rest in peace. We can't do this to Master. Shu Yu looked at Xiao Sudong's serious appearance and felt a little gratified in her heart. He was already so old and had already seen through many things. It was fine if he lost his life, but at least his disciple really valued him. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao So's hysterical words rang out. He deserves it. He promised Father that he would take good care of us. Do you think Father didn't give him any benefits? All of this is how it should be. Shut up. Xiao Sudong roared. It's been so long, haven't you messed around enough? No matter how much you messed around during this time, I thought it was because what happened back then was too big a blow to you. But now you're saying such things. Are you still human? Xiao Sudong's eyes were full of disappointment. He didn't want to believe that the woman in front of him was the sister he had always admired. You're the crazy one. Xiao So was unmoved. You never thought about revenge. You've forgotten all about your family after following him. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at the two people who were getting more and more intense. Their eyes were filled with confusion. So the siblings were arguing because of this before they died? Forget it, Sudong. Shu Yu finally spoke. I'm already very gratified that you're so considerate of Master. Don't tell them the whereabouts of the secret key. This can be considered as not letting down your family. Xiao Sudong's expression was desolate. Master. That's how it should be. Xiao So turned her head and said provocatively, What can you do? Bailey Hongzhuang stuffed a pill into Xiao So's mouth. Her bright and beautiful face was filled with confidence. I have more ways than you can imagine. This was the inheritance of the Di family. She would not let this woman ruin everything. When she recalled the changes that had happened to Beichen in the secret realm, she knew that she had to find the secret key. This was the only way to find out everything. The moment she was forced to swallow the pill, Xiao So tried to vomit it out. Cough, cough, there's no need to try. The pill melts as soon as it enters your mouth. You won't be able to spit it out, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Xiao So's expression immediately turned extremely ugly. She really couldn't spit anything out. Other than her saliva, there was nothing else. What did you feed me? A pill to make you tell the truth. You're playing with me. Xiao So's eyes narrowed. She didn't doubt Bailey Hongzhuang's words at all. With her pill-refining skills, it wasn't difficult for her to use some tricks. However, this also meant that all her previous efforts had been in vain. It had no effect on Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 7281. Tell me where the secret key is. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. If you don't tell me, you'll have a taste of real pain. In your dreams. Xiao So sneered. Even if I die, I won't let you get what you want. These two women are completely at odds with each other. When Ziren looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao So's serious expressions and felt that no one could interfere in the world of these two women. This was completely a confrontation between women. Shangguan Yingying glared at Ziren and remained silent. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao So were not only rivals in love, but their original identities, environments, and all kinds of things contributed to the deep hatred between the two. Today was the day that all of this would end. Soon, fine beads of sweat covered Xiao Shua's forehead. Needle-like pain erupted from within her body. This pain became more and more intense, and also more and more concentrated. In almost a short time, Xiao Shou could no longer hold on. "You despicable woman!" Xiao Shou cursed loudly. The sharp pain in her body made her face pale, and her eyes full of pain. "Sister, what's wrong?" Xiao Sudong looked anxious. Just by looking at Xiao Shou's expression, he could tell that she was in great pain at the moment. Xiao Shou curled up and her eyes fell on Di Beichen. "Di Beichen, in any case we have a marriage agreement. Based on this, can't you let me go?" However, Di Beichen, who had her hopes pinned on, looked indifferent. The evils she brought on herself were the hardest to bear. "Damn it!" Xiao Sudong rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. "Quickly hand over the antidote." Just as Xiao Sudong was about to move, Di Beichen waved his hand and stopped him. Xiao Sudong struggled, but found that his body seemed to be controlled by an invisible hand, and he couldn't move at all. "Damn it!" Xiao Sudong's eyes turned red. "Di Beichen, what kind of man are you? I don't need to prove it to you." When Di Xiaofeng heard Di Beichen's serious words, he almost choked on his own saliva. His little brother was indeed invincible when he spoke. "Kill us if you can. It's useless to goad him." Di Beichen's indifference and Xiao Sudong's madness formed a sharp contrast. All of the other parties' struggles became meaningless. "Tell me where the secret key is." No. Xiao Shou struggled to refuse. However, this struggle did not last long before she could no longer hold on. Kill me! Intense pain enveloped Xiao Shou, making her wish she was dead. Seeing this, Xiao Sudong's eyes were filled with unbearable pain. Even if the pain was not on his body, he could still feel what kind of pain it was. He couldn't do it, and under Di Beichen's control, he couldn't move at all. "Say it, you won't have to suffer anymore," Bailey Hongzhuang said. Under this kind of torture, Xiao Shou's original persistence collapsed. "I'll tell you, let go of me, I'll go get it," Xiao Sudong said. Hearing this, Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and let go of Xiao Sudong. Xiao Sudong looked at Xiao Shou and then looked at Shu Yu. Only then did he walk to the edge of the courtyard and take something out. Noticing the thing in his hand, Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng's eyes lit up. It was the secret key. "The secret key is here, hand over the antidote," Xiao Sudong emphasized. Chapter 72-82. When Di Xiaofeng saw that Xiao Sudong was holding the real secret key, his eyes were filled with surprise. "I will let your master go." Di Xiaofeng took the secret key. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang was ready to end Xiao Shou's pain. Bang! With a gust of wind, Di Xiaofeng was hit hard, and his body slammed into the wall. In an instant, the wall collapsed and Di Xiaofeng was covered by the dust and rubble. "Xiao Feng." Bailey Yunyan didn't care about anything else. She quickly ran to the pile of broken stones and threw them away. The sudden turn of events was beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone turned to look, and the moment they saw who it was, Xiao Shou's eyes shone with a dazzling brilliance. "Qing devil?" Looking at the face that looked exactly like Jun Lingxuan, Xiao Shou couldn't help but cry tears of joy. After waiting for so long, she finally saw the Qing devil. "I knew that I would definitely be able to see you." Xiao Shou excitedly looked at the tall and straight man. "You came specially to save me, right?" Xiao Sudong and Shu Yu also looked at Jun Lingxuan in disbelief. Xiao Shou had never been willing to give up looking for the Qing devil. They only regarded him as the father of the child. Xiao Shou's obsession had never bothered them. If the Qing devil could get out of the ancient battlefield, he would have done so long ago. How could he have been trapped inside for so many years? However, this man actually appeared in front of them. Qing devil frowned unconsciously when he saw Xiao Shou. He came here today just to deal with Di Baichen and Qin Haodong. He didn't expect to see this woman by accident. She was just a woman that he had casually found after years of loneliness after possessing her body. Now that she had appeared in front of him, there was no objection. Di Baichen's face darkened. His handsome face was filled with a murderous aura. Di Baichen, we meet again. Qing Devil looked at Di Baichen coldly. Do you remember that I said I would kill you? That might not be the case. Di Baichen glanced at the 4 people traveling with Qing Devil. There were 5 masters in the elementary celestial realm. Judging from their current situation, they were indeed in a terrible situation. When Xiren and the others knew the situation was bad, they were only at the Radiant Sun stage. There was an insurmountable gap between them and the elementary immortal stage. Only Baichen and Hongzhuang have similar cultivations. As for the other 3, I'm afraid we won't be of much help. Bai Liyan Che's face darkened. He and Linger might be able to hold back one of them temporarily if they joined hands. However, there was a huge gap in strength between them and immortals. It was almost impossible for them to fight against an immortal who was at a higher level. What should we do? Shangguan Yingying's face was pale. We are no match for them. Shall we take the opportunity to leave? They were no match for them in a head-on fight. The only way was to take the opportunity to escape. Although they couldn't defeat them now, it didn't mean they couldn't defeat them in the future. It was unwise to fight them head-on now. You are still as arrogant as ever. The Azure Fiend sneered, but his smile did not reach his eyes. It's been a while since we last met. Your strength has indeed exceeded my expectations. However, you don't have the right to fight me in this realm. I heard that you were like a stray dog when you first arrived in the immortal realm. Many people were watching you. Now you can only come to the immortal realm to show off, Di Baichen said lightly. Chapter 72-83. Qing Devil's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect Di Baichen to know so much about the immortal realm. So what? Qing Devil said with a disdainful smile. Even though I have many enemies in the immortal realm, they can't do anything to me, let alone you guys? Baichen, there are 5 of them. With our strength, we are no match for them. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw the situation clearly, she sent a voice transmission to Di Baichen. We can't take the risk now. We have to find a way to get out of here first. Di Baichen's expression did not change. In his heart, he understood that the most important thing in this situation was everyone's safety. Perhaps he and Hongzhuang still had the ability to protect themselves, but the other Radiant Sun realm cultivators were definitely no match for them. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang moved and grabbed Xiao Sou's throat. Qing Devil, let them go. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior, Qing Devil showed a trace of disdain. Bailey Hongzhuang, are you desperate? Do you think you can threaten me by catching this woman? Seeing this, the 4 men behind him couldn't help but chuckle. They knew the Qing Devil's character very well. Even if the girl in front of them was really beautiful, the Qing Devil would never be soft-hearted, not to mention that she was not a peerless beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xiao Sou. The devil in your heart doesn't seem to care about you at all. Xiao Sou was also a little anxious. She quickly said, Qing Devil, I'm So. Don't you remember me? Why should I remember you? There was a trace of disgust in the Qing Devil's eyes. Normally, this kind of woman wouldn't even be qualified to climb into his bed. You haven't seen me for a few years. I've been looking for you and our child. Hearing this, Qing Devil was dumbfounded. The 4 people behind him were also dumbfounded. Master Qing Devil has a child? They had never taken Xiao Sou seriously because Mr. Qing Devil always had a lot of women. However, if this girl had given birth to Mr. Qing Devil's child, it would be completely different. You're lying, right? How could an adult not know that he has a child? Qing Devil looked at Xiao Sou with a complicated expression. What are you talking about? I'm not talking nonsense. Xiao Sou seemed to be grasping at a life-saving straw as she anxiously said, After that, I got pregnant. Later, I gave birth to the child, and now the child is next door. My sister is really pregnant with your child. Xiao Sudong shouted to the other side, Qingbao, come here. Not long after, a cute child ran over timidly. After noticing that Xiao Sou could control herself, he hurriedly ran over. Mom! Mom! Qing Devil's subordinates looked at the little boy and then looked at Qing Devil. Didn't they look alike? Qing Devil grabbed the child. After a simple test, he realized that the child was really his. He is really our child. Xiao Sou looked at Qing Bao and said, Qing Bao, he is your father. Qing Bao looked at Qing Devil in surprise and said timidly, Dad. The Malakian fiend's expression changed. He had never thought that he would have a child out of nowhere. At this moment, the way he looked at Xiao Se Wu was a little more complicated than the disgust from before. He didn't care about this woman, but since she was his child, there was no reason for him to leave her alone. Let her go. Qing Devil's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 72-84. Xiao Sou smiled happily when she saw that Qing Devil was willing to stand up for her. Everyone believed that it was wrong for her to be with the Qing Devil, but he was the most outstanding man she had ever met. Even in the immortal realm, the Qing Devil was a well-known figure. I don't think I need to repeat what I just said, Bailey Hongzhuang said. The Azure Demon glanced at Wen Ziren and the others behind him, and the corners of his lips curled up into a cold smile. Do you really think you can threaten me? You can try and see if you're faster than me. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. The sharp blade in her hand had already drawn a line of blood on Xiao Sou's neck. Qing Devil! Xiao Sou exclaimed. Qing Devil glanced at the baby beside her and said, Okay, I'll let them go. We can't leave. Ziren said without hesitation. With their strength, they were indeed unable to provide much help. However, even if their strength was meager, it was still a part of their strength. Once they left, there would only be Beichen and Yizichen left. If they wanted to fight against these 5 people, it would not be optimistic. You guys go first. Di Beichen's deep voice was resolute and firm. After noticing that Di Xiaofeng's injuries were not serious, he was relieved. Beichen, just when the others wanted to refuse, Di Xiaofeng had already understood Di Beichen's gaze. He immediately said without hesitation, Let's go. Seeing this, Wen Ziren and the others couldn't help but feel worried, but they still left with him. Just as everyone was leaving, Qing Devil arrived in the blink of an eye and attacked Bailey Hongzhuang with his palm. A tyrannical force came head-on, and Bailey Hongzhuang only felt the sharp blade in her hand being forcefully controlled. She couldn't move at all, and the power of the attack was too great. If she didn't avoid it, she was afraid she would be injured. Stop them all. Don't let any of them leave. Qing Devil's voice sounded. Seeing this, Di Xiaofeng and the others quickly left in different directions. There was not much they could do. They could only try their best to stall for time. Xiao Sou was relieved after getting out of the control. However, Qing Devil had already started to fight with Bailey Hongzhuang. Bang! When the 2 fists collided, Bailey Hongzhuang realized how powerful Qing Devil was. As expected of someone with a great reputation in the celestial realm, he must have broken through to the elementary celestial realm many years ago, and his strength was much stronger than theirs. Your strength is not enough to deal with me. Qing Devil said scornfully, Go to hell today. Qing Devil's attack was powerful and fierce. His elemental power changed infinitely in his hands. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang was overwhelmed and could only defend herself. Di Beichen rushed over at once, but Qing Devil's subordinates stopped him quickly. 2 against 1? You have to ask whether we agree or not. The man's eyes were full of coldness. His attack was overwhelming. Bang! 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 Di Beichen didn't hide his strength at all. At this moment, if he wanted to have a backup plan, he would be courting death. The only thing he could do was to take advantage of his unpreparedness and attack first. As soon as he opened his third eye, an illusion appeared instantly. A trace of confusion flashed in the man's eyes. At the same time, Baichen's attack arrived abruptly. Boom! The man's figure was directly sent flying. However, he stood up quickly with a gloomy face. Chapter 72-85. I've underestimated you. The man looked at Baichen coldly. From the beginning, he had never taken this kid, who had just broken through to the elementary celestial stage, seriously. However, after this fight, he realized that this kid's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. The Qing Devil had always been good at illusions. He had followed the Qing Devil for so long, and ordinary illusions were useless to him. However, this person's illusions had made him lose his mind. Now I'll show you my real strength. The man did not waste his breath. He waved his sleeve, and the long rod in his hand whizzed out. It turned into 1,000 feet long rainbow light, and with an unstoppable force, it tore through the sky and blasted toward Baichen at lightning speed. Boom! The sword in Baichen's hand also burst out with a bright golden light. The terrifying sword Qi also turned into a golden rainbow, exuding a sharp and terrifying aura. The terrifying sharpness of the sword seemed to be able to cut through the heavens and the earth. Rumble! The 1,000 feet long rainbow light and the shocking sword Qi pierced through the void, and with terrifying energy ripples, they violently collided with each other. A low and deep sound resounded like thunder at this moment. Incomparably wild and violent energy spread out like a storm. The surrounding cultivators rushed out of their houses after sensing such a terrifying aura. When they saw it with their own eyes, their doubts instantly turned into shock and fear. This kind of energy collision was not something that the cultivators in the crossing celestial realm could achieve. This is definitely the strength of the elementary celestial stage. There are actually experts in the elementary celestial stage fighting here. Let's go, this house can't withstand it at all. Even though the surrounding buildings were protected by protective shields, the collision of such energy had completely exceeded the limits of what the protective shields could withstand. After a short period of resistance, the surrounding buildings collapsed almost instantly, turning into ruins. The ground cracked inch by inch, and terrifying cracks spread out like a spider web from the center of the two people. This crazy exchange of attacks did not last for too long. The rainbow light and sword Qi exploded, and the two figures were both shot backward. One of the figures even landed heavily on the ground, drawing a deep ravine that was 1,000 feet long. Cough, how could this be? The man clutched his chest and coughed with bloody foam. His internal organs seemed to have been displaced. He had suffered a very serious internal injury. The terrifying sword Qi seemed to be indestructible. When it landed on his body, it seemed to have cut open his body, causing countless bloody holes to appear. You think too highly of yourself. Baichen's expression was cold as he shot out again. This time, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His cold eyes carried a bloodthirsty aura as he descended from the sky. The man was very clear that Baichen's sword was aimed at his heart. No matter how unwilling he was to admit that he was no match for Baichen, at this moment, he could only do his best to survive. Stop him. Seeing this, one of the men also rushed out at lightning speed. Ding! The sharp sword expanded in the air, and the man's sword bent into an incredible arc. Finally, it blocked Baichen's attack. At this moment, the man's expression changed abruptly. This person had just broken through the elementary celestial stage, and his means were already so terrifying. No wonder Lord Qing Devil brought them here. It was not a fuss, but to prevent future troubles. End of chapter. Chapter 72-86. Taking advantage of the gap when the man who came later blocked Baichen, the seriously injured man scrambled to his feet, quickly rushed to the side, and hurriedly took a pill. This guy's strength was much stronger than he thought. He had broken through to the elementary immortal stage for some years now. Although he could not be said to be hard-working in his cultivation, he was not bad either. It was hard to believe that a guy who had just broken through to the elementary immortal stage could have such combat strength. This kind of guy was probably what everyone called a genius. Once he broke through, his strength would far surpass those of the same level. "Fourth brother, are you all right?" The man stared solemnly at Di Bachin in front of him. Out of the corner of his eye, he sized up the man behind him with a trace of concern. "I'm fine," the man said in a deep voice. After taking the pill, the wounds on his body were healing rapidly. However, the sword chi was extremely sharp, and it was not easy to heal them. "Third brother, be careful. This kid is a little strange." "I can tell." There was not the slightest bit of disdain in the third brother's eyes. He had only received one move from him, but he had already discovered that this brat's strength was simply astonishing. Bang! A shocking sound was heard. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure appeared in the middle of the ruins. The smoke and dust in the air contrasted against her flawless face, adding a hint of murderous aura. "Do you think I'm still the same person?" Qing Devil sneered. Looking at the blood blooming on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder, the violence in his eyes was obvious. Back then, he had been trapped in the ancient battlefield for too long and his strength had been reduced by a lot. In addition, he had just taken over Jun Lingxuan's body and needed some time to adapt. Therefore, under such circumstances, he was restrained by Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. But now, the situation was completely different. Bailey Hongzhuang stared coldly at the arrogant and disgusting face. She was disgusted by both Qing Devil and Jun Lingxuan. Her ink-black pupils were shining with a firm light, revealing a trace of unyielding and strong determination. "I thought that when we met again, you would be able to easily crush me. But now it seems that's not the case." Wu Shuang wore a playful and mocking smile on her face. Although she was the opponent of Qing Devil and others, she had to admit that this woman was indescribably beautiful no matter what kind of expression she wore. Arrogant. Qing Devil's face darkened. This sharp-tongued woman always seemed to know how to poke his sore spot. What he wanted was not to win, but to completely crush her. Just the fact that he had to fight for half a day was already a humiliation to him. "Hongzhuang, leave this to me." Di Beichen's figure jumped, and he was already in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Unsurprisingly, Qing Devil was the most powerful one among the 5 Qing Devil. After noticing the blossoming blood on the woman's shoulder, Di Beichen's eyes darkened quietly. His deep eyes became even more serene, and a trace of fierceness and bloodthirstiness in his heart was awakened. "Hero saving the beauty?" Qing Devil snorted disdainfully. "You are not qualified to do that in front of me." The red halberd in Qing Devil's hand was shining with a dim and sharp light. His eyes became extremely fierce. With a swish, he tore through the air and appeared above Di Beichen in an instant. The halberd, which was infused with endless power, hammered down heavily. In an instant it seemed that even the invisible space was about to collapse. Clang! Di Beichen was also extremely fast. After noticing Qing Devil's attack, the golden sword chi on the severed passion sword burst out. The momentum that seemed to be able to cut the heaven and the earth suddenly appeared. His divine movement was as fast as lightning. Facing the red light, he rushed up angrily. Chapter 72-87. Boom! A shocking storm broke out between the two of them. The low rumbling sound made countless people's eardrums hurt. The onlooking cultivators trembled when they saw this scene. They were completely powerless against the aftermath of a fight between two masters in the elementary celestial realm. In an instant, the crowd retreated almost tacitly and stood in the distance, looking at the center of the storm. Boom! 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 A shocking collision broke out between the two of them. Neither of them had any intention of dodging. Every single collision was a head-on collision between the halberd and the sharp sword. Everywhere his figure passed, space collapsed, and the sword chi and halberd even tore open numerous enormous ravines on the ground wherever they passed. In the blink of an eye, the place was devastated. After seeing that Di Baichen could fight head-on with the Qing devil, a look of disbelief appeared in the eyes of number 4 and the others. This guy's strength is really terrifying. He has such strength just after breaking through. In the future, he will be really amazing. His talent is really not simple. But he is unlucky to have met us. The third brother's expression was calm. Although he can fight Milord head-on, if you look closely, you can see that he is still slightly weaker. Don't forget that when Milord was roaming the immortal region, he was also a first-rate genius. Who is our Lord? Not to mention that he is weaker. Even if he is not, our Lord can definitely defeat him. Leave this to me. In midair, a familiar and reassuring voice came. Bailey Hongzhuang looked into the distance, held the sharp sword in her hand, and fixed her eyes on number 3. After the fight just now, she already knew how powerful the Qing devil was. Di Baichen could hold on for a while, but it was undoubtedly very difficult for him to defeat the Qing devil. Therefore, she did not have much time. She had to kill as many of them as possible. Boom! Almost in an instant, a storm-like gorgeous brilliance suddenly swept out from Bailey Hongzhuang's body. The 7-colored origin energy was as dazzling as a rainbow, and within the dazzling brilliance was a vast amount of origin energy. Her figure was as fast as lightning. Like a flash of lightning, the incomparably sharp sword Qi turned into a 7-colored beam of light and fiercely attacked Old Third. The pillar of light looked magnificent, like a magnificent gem. However, those who got close to it would understand the endless murderous aura contained within its magnificence. The stones on the ground were almost instantly crushed into powder. After seeing this attack, a trace of astonishment flashed across Third Brother's eyes. As expected of husband and wife, even their sword auras are equally sharp. His words were filled with mockery, but he did not dare to slack off in the slightest. Based on the woman's overwhelming might, he understood that he could not judge her based on the strength of an ordinary woman. The man let out a roar and his eyes turned scarlet. A blue sword appeared in his hand and a ray of sword light flashed. Everyone saw a 10,000 feet long crack extend out like a giant python, emitting a cold and sinister aura. Boom, boom, boom. The two rays of sword light met in mid-air and collided with each other with unparalleled momentum. The sharp pillar of light turned into numerous sharp holes and shot into the ground like a torrential downpour of pear blossoms, creating dense pits on the ground. Immediately after, the man's figure once again attacked. Like a thunderbolt, he rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang, his sword covering the sky and covering the earth, shrouding the vital parts of Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 72-88. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, and there was not the slightest bit of panic on her face. A dazzling 7-colored light burst out from her body, directly shattering the sword light that covered the sky and the earth. After blocking the attack, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes suddenly emitted a demonic brilliance. "Don't look at her eyes!" OL4 immediately reminded him when he noticed this. He had suffered such a loss at the hands of Di Baichen. However, his warning was still a step too late. The bewitching eyes were like the summons of an evil spirit, and an illusion that had been set up for a long time instantly enveloped Old Third. Old Third's originally clear eyes quickly flashed with a hint of doubt and confusion. Screech! When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that her opponent had fallen into the illusion, she moved like a ghost and instantly appeared in front of the man. The thought's severing sword was shrouded in a dazzling 7-colored radiance. With an extremely ruthless stance, it pierced through the man's throat. "Be careful!" Fourth brother saw that the situation was not good and quickly rushed forward. Although he had already taken the pill, his strength was still affected. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She only had one chance to strike. Although the effect of the illusion was strong, the other party's cultivation was higher than hers. Even if she could trap him, it would not last long. "Go!" With a clear cry, Xiao Hei shot out like a pebble from Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. She quickly grew in size in midair, and Xiao Hei charged towards OL4. The sudden change was beyond OL4's expectations. He almost subconsciously wanted to dodge, but by the time he reacted, the figure had already swept to another place. Chi, a soft voice sounded. It was almost inaudible in this noisy environment, but it made Old Four's expression change instantly. Bang! The man's body fell down heavily. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold eyes revealed a murderous aura. Getting rid of one person would at least lessen the pressure on them. Third brother. The man's pupils shrank as grief engulfed him. He could not believe that his third brother had fallen in such a short time. How could this be? Xiao So looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. She realized that a confrontation of this level was not something she could participate in. That woman who had been crushed by her back then had now risen to such a terrifying level. Qing Devil also noticed the movement behind him. He raised his eyebrows unconsciously and said to himself, "Trash!" Bang bang bang! Suddenly, the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground was heard, followed by a series of muffled groans. Third brother! What's going on? Two figures quickly rushed over. It was the first brother and second brother who went to capture Di Xiaofeng's group. When OL4 saw the two coming, the grief between his eyebrows deepened. Then he raised his head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang fiercely. "It's this woman. She killed third brother." When Di Xiaofeng and the others who were captured heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had already gotten rid of one person, a trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. "Hongzhuang, good job." Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with a luster of worship. Hongzhuang was the person she admired the most. When Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the situation of Di Xiaofeng and the others, she could not help but frown. Her clear eyes revealed a look of worry. The two of them did not hold back at all. With just a glance, she noticed that almost everyone had suffered heavy injuries. Chapter 72-89. I can't let this go on. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. Previously, two of them were not here because they were chasing after the others. Now that the two of them had returned, there were four of them, including Qing Devil. Even though she had killed one of them, the situation was still not optimistic. Bastard! I'm going to kill her and bury her with third brother. Second brother quickly rushed over and punched out fiercely. Yellow light gathered crazily under his fist and turned into a yellow light beam that whizzed out. Earth-shattering demonic fist. At the same time, eldest brother suddenly brandished his long spear. A dazzling golden light circled around the long spear like a divine dragon. A fierce and shocking aura rose sharply with the wind. Bastard, these two fellows are joining forces to fight Hongzhuang. Shangguan Yingying was unwilling to accept this. Even though Hongzhuang was very powerful, it was already difficult for her to deal with one person, let alone two people joining forces. She subconsciously wanted to stand up. However, the excruciating pain in her body made her break out in cold sweat. It was not until she fought with these two people that she realized the difference in strength between the Radiant Sun stage and the Elementary Celestial stage. With just one move, several of her bones had been broken. She was almost powerless to fight back. Damn it! Xiren's eyes were full of annoyance and unwillingness. In this situation, not only could he not be of any help, he had become a burden. As members of the Beast Clan, Bai Li Yanche and Linger's injuries were not as serious as Xiren's, but they were not much better. Most importantly, they knew that if they rushed forward in this situation, they would not be of any help to Hongzhuang. On the contrary, they would make her worry about them. They could only think of other ways. Bailey Hongzhuang watched as the two people attacked her rapidly. Her hand seals changed rapidly and colorful light shone brightly. Dark shadow-glazed pagoda. A pagoda that was thousands of feet tall suddenly appeared in midair. It was shining with a magnificent and dazzling colorful light. If one took a closer look, one would find that there was a black light floating in the colorful pagoda. The black light was like a shadow, reaching all the way to the top of the pagoda. Bang! An earth-shattering sound reverberated, and the 3 rays of light exploded, like fireworks blooming in midair, but the scattered aftershock almost flattened all the surrounding buildings. As the dust settled, Bailey Hongzhuang fell heavily to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her devastatingly beautiful face was dyed pale, adding a trace of weakness. The trace of dark red at the corner of her lips emitted an almost bewitching beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at the two of them and sighed. As expected, it's still not enough? She had just stepped into the elementary celestial stage not long ago. She, who had yet to set foot in the celestial domain, had not learned any corresponding martial technique. The only thing she could use was her ultimate technique. Unfortunately, when facing the experts of the immortal realm, this level of martial arts was still a level weaker. Big brother and second brother looked at each other. They could see the fear in each other's eyes. At first, they thought that with the two of them working together, the other party would have no chance at all. However, after exchanging blows, they were very clear in their hearts that if it wasn't for the fact that this woman didn't know enough martial arts, and if it was the martial arts of the immortal realm, they probably wouldn't be like this now. What kind of freak was this? They looked up at the man who was retreating under Qing Devil's attack, but was still holding on. Their expressions changed involuntarily. The talents of these two people were too amazing. Their strength was not comparable to that of ordinary people in the elementary celestial stage. Chapter 7290. After Xiao Shou noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was seriously injured, her eyes were filled with pride. Bailey Hongzhuang, to think that you would have such a day. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Xiao Shou coldly. Winner takes all. Today they were one step behind. Unexpectedly, Qing Devil was the aureole behind them. Weren't you very arrogant in front of me earlier? Let's see how arrogant you can be now. Xiao Shou, your smug look is really disgusting, Shangguan Yingying said in disgust. Xiao Shou turned to look at Shangguan Yingying. Her eyes were filled with malice as she said, Shangguan Yingying, do you really think you're something? I'll let you have a taste of humiliation. Bailey Hongzhuang was at the elementary immortal realm. Even though she was injured, she did not dare to get close to them. However, Shangguan Yingying was different. Seeing Xiao Shou approach with a venomous expression, Ziren couldn't help but ask, What do you want? I want her to have a taste of pain. Xiao Shou's eyes shone with a sinister light. She had been unhappy with Shangguan Yingying for a long time. Shangguan Yingying, a woman with no background, had always treated her coldly because of her relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Shangguan Yingying had fallen into her hands, she must make her pay the price. A dagger appeared in her hand. With a sinister smile, she approached Shangguan Yingying step by step. Seeing this, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but move back. This woman was completely insane. Xiao Shou, stop. Ziren blocked Shangguan Yingying's face. You? Xiao Shou sneered. Don't worry, I won't let any of you off. In the next moment, the dagger pierced Shangguan Yingying's thigh. Shangguan Yingying screamed as blood spurted out from her leg. The warm blood splashed onto Xiao Shou's face, but it only made her even more excited. This kind of enemy showing fear in front of her made her feel exceptionally happy. Xiao Shou, stop. Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed this scene. Her eyes were suddenly dyed with a trace of bright red, and the veins on her temples throbbed. This crazy woman was indeed deranged. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang rose to her feet, Big Brother and Second Brother stood in front of her and attacked her once again. If this woman wasn't dealt with as soon as possible, she would definitely become a huge threat in the future. Although they also thought that Xiao Shou was a petty person who got what she wanted, this woman had given birth to the Qing Devil's child, so they couldn't say anything about it. Damn it! Bailey Hongzhuang had no choice but to block the incoming ferocious attack. She couldn't spare any attention to help. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. Xiao So fell heavily to the ground. Xiao So, you're really a smelly bug. You're disgusting. Ling stared coldly at her. Her beautiful face was pale. She was already seriously injured, but compared to Shangguan Yingying and the others who couldn't move, she was in a much better condition. Now that she attacked, her injuries became even more serious. This woman would only show off when others were unable to move. Not to mention that Bei Chen already had Hongzhuang. Even if he did not, he would definitely not fall for such a woman. Bastard! Xiao So clutched her chest. She didn't expect Ling to be able to resist. It was only one move, but her internal organs were burning with pain. She had obviously suffered serious internal injuries. You, control them! Xiao So looked at fourth brother and shouted coldly. Chapter 72-91. Old Four saw Xiao So looking at him arrogantly, and his brows unconsciously wrinkled. This woman really did not leave a good impression. He subconsciously looked at Qing Devil, who was in midair. At this moment, His Excellency obviously couldn't care about him at all. Even if he had a constable in his heart, he couldn't ignore it at this moment. The next moment, Old Four walked over and attacked Linger with his palm. Bang! A muffled groan escaped from Bai Li Yen-che's throat. Linger looked at the man who had suddenly appeared in front of her, and a look of intense anxiety surfaced in her eyes. Are you all right, Yen-che? Bai Li Yen-che looked at her anxious little face and shook his head with a smile. I'm fine. Linger's eyes reddened. Bai Li Yen-che's injuries were more serious than hers. Now that he had blocked such a blow, how could he be fine? Keep an eye on them. If anyone dares to move, kill them, Xiao So said. Yes. Xiao So's face was full of pride. She held the dagger and rushed in front of Linger. You're very proud, aren't you? At a time like this, there are still people who would risk their lives to save you. Isn't it all because of your face? You and Bailey Hongzhuang are the same. Both of you rely on your face to seduce men. I'll destroy your face now. Let's see if you can still seduce men. Xiao So approached Linger with a dagger in her hand. Bai Li Yen-che tried to stop her, but Lao Si had locked onto his aura and he couldn't move at all. Give her a slap. Recalling the power of Linger's palm strike just now, Xiao So's eyes revealed a trace of fear. Who knew if this woman had other tricks up her sleeves? He had to eliminate all threats. Bang! Linger fell to the ground. Blood flowed from the corner of her lips. Her already pale face was now as white as a sheet of paper. Xiao So, if you want to kill someone, kill me first. Shangguan Yingying shouted with tears in her eyes. If it weren't for her, Linger wouldn't have been targeted by Xiao So. Shut up. Xiao So coldly glanced at Shangguan Yingying. Don't worry, you're next. Shua. A slight sound was heard. Linger's face was cut open and warm blood flowed down. A trace of pain flashed through Linger's eyes, but she stubbornly remained silent. She understood that the pain and anguish at this moment would only make Xiao So feel better, and she would not give her the chance to do so. Boom! In midair, a figure fell heavily, and the whole ground seemed to shake. An astonishing aura spread out from the center of the fall, spreading rapidly like an earthquake. A hundreds of feet deep pit suddenly appeared, and the figure seemed to be buried by the huge pit. Di Beichen, today is the day you die. An arrogant and haughty voice rang out from the air. The azure demon stood in the air, looking down at them with disdain. One could even vaguely make out a trace of anger on his face. This guy, who was no more than an ant in his eyes, could hold on for so long in his hands. Fortunately, Qing Ji's death made him discover the existence of Di Beichen. Otherwise, he could not even imagine what would happen in the future. Di Xiaofeng and the others looked at the deep pit anxiously. They knew how much pressure Beichen was under when he fought with Qing Devil. The battle just now was so fierce, and the huge pit was so terrifying. Facing the cruel and ferocious Qing Devil, they did not dare to think about how Beichen was now. Was he still alive? Chapter 72-92. Bang! With a wave of his hand, Qing Devil lifted a huge rock weighing thousands of kilograms and threw it into the pit. Beichen! Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't care less about the two men's attacks, and quickly rushed towards the hole. She couldn't just watch as Beichen died. Even if they died, they had to die together. The boulder was pushed away by Bailey Hongzhuang with all her strength and smashed into the ground, turning into powder. Hongzhuang! Sister! Bai Lian-che and the others stared at the thin white figure with fear in their hearts. The two attacks behind her were mercilessly aimed at her. In an instant, that graceful figure fell down like a kite with a broken string. Tears flowed from their eyes unconsciously. Bai Lian-che and the others only realized all this when they noticed the wetness on their cheek. They had always known that as cultivators, there was a chance that they would meet with an accident and perish along the way. However, seeing this scene with his own eyes, the shock and pain in his heart could not be described with words. The pain that penetrated deep into their bones was like a devil's claw fiercely grabbing their hearts. With just a little bit of force they would be drenched in blood. Roar! A roar that could destroy everything sounded from Bailey Yench's throat. The surrounding people only felt that this sound wave was mixed with a shocking pressure, as if even breathing had become difficult. There were no demon beasts in the crossing celestial domain. This was what they learned after coming to the crossing immortal domain. This was a completely sealed area. Other than the immortals who had ascended, there were no other living beings. Even the dark attribute demons lived outside the crossing immortal region. Otherwise, they would not have fallen into such a situation. Moreover, the skeletons in the crossing celestial domain were all at the radiant sun stage or below. Even if they spent a lot of effort to summon these skeletons, how could they cause any trouble to the elementary celestial stage cultivators? When one's cultivation had reached a certain level, a group attack would not be effective. In the end, it was all because the Qing Devil appeared at the right time. Ta-ta. A faint sound of footsteps could be heard. After discovering the source of the sound, everyone could not help but look in the direction of the hole. Di Beichen slowly walked out of the hole with Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms. His pace was very slow, and his clothes were stained with blood. However, his hands that held Bailey Hongzhuang were firm and strong. Bailey Hongzhuang hooked her arm around Di Beichen's shoulder. Her gaze was gentle and affectionate, as if she could imprint him in her heart forever with just one more glance. When Shangguan Yingying and the others saw this scene, they almost choked with sobs. How could they not see that Beichen was already at the end of his rope, and Hongzhuang's situation was not optimistic after suffering such a blow? As long as we can all die together, that would be great. Di Xiaofeng's face revealed a touch of comfort. He looked at Bailey Yunyan beside him. Are you scared? Bailey Yunyan smiled faintly and shook her head. No. In this tragic atmosphere, Ling and the others' faces bloomed with poignant and bright smiles. At least, they were all still together. This was already a good ending. Blood dyed Di Beichen's hands red. Wrapped in intense pain, it was as if he could no longer feel it. His heart was only filled with the beautiful woman in his arms. It was a pity that he could not protect her. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and looked at Di Beichen. Then, she looked at Di Xiaofeng and the others who were seriously injured behind her. A drop of crystal-clear tear fell from the corner of her eye. I'm sorry, everyone. Chapter 72-93. I'm sorry, I can't let you all die together. Di Xiaofeng and the others almost instinctively frowned after hearing this. Before they understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant, they felt their vision darken. When they opened their eyes again, it was a familiar room, but it made their hearts turn cold. Oh no, Hongzhuang sent them back. When Xiren's expression turned ugly. It was only at this moment that he understood the meaning behind Hongzhuang's apology. She knew that she and Beichen would not be able to escape, so she sent them back. She had even exposed the secret of the Chaos Ring. How could this be? Shangguan Yingying sobbed. I want to go back. Calm down. Hong Zhuang didn't hesitate to expose her secret to send us back. If we go back rashly, wouldn't we be letting down her painstaking efforts? Di Xiaofeng couldn't hide the sorrow on his face. He also wanted to go back, but he knew that he couldn't do it now. If Xiao Sou and Qing Devil joined hands, the Di family would definitely be in danger. Even if they were going to die, they had to send the news back first. Revenge was a dish best served cold. Perhaps in the future, they would still have hope of revenge. When Xiao Sou realized that the people in front of her had suddenly disappeared, a look of disbelief appeared in her eyes. Why did they disappear all of a sudden? Qing Devil's eyes lit up. After connecting what happened with what Bailey Hongzhuang said just now, he was almost sure that all this had something to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. What kind of magic treasure was this? It actually had such an astonishing effect. If he could take that magic treasure for himself, then his future life-saving means would increase. However, he did not notice that while he was thinking about all this, a black stone-like figure had disappeared into the dust with the Chaos Ring. She would rather die than let the Chaos Ring fall into the hands of Qing Devil. She knew very well that it was impossible for her and Beichen to take the opportunity to leave together in that situation. The Qing Devil's breath had been locked on them. If they wanted to leave together, they would definitely be caught by the Qing Devil. Now that she and Beichen had attracted Qing Devil's attention, no one would notice Xiao Bai's departure. I didn't expect you to have such a treasure. Qing Devil sneered, and the covetous look in her eyes was obvious. However, he was not in a hurry to obtain the treasures. After all, the two of them would die in his hands soon. By then, everything would naturally fall into his hands. Now die! Bang! With an earth-shattering sound, a dazzling light suddenly burst out from Qing Devil's body, emitting a terrifying aura. Then he dashed forward like a shooting star. Di Beichen looked at the gentle and affectionate woman in his arms and said softly, "Don't be afraid." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and kissed him on the lips. "I'll find you again in my next life." Okay. Di Beichen raised one hand, and all the energy in his body burst out at this moment. It turned into an overwhelming black storm, rippling between heaven and earth. In an instant, the people found that the original daytime was suddenly covered by thick ink-like darkness, and the daytime turned into the night in an instant. The tall and straight figure seemed to turn into the god of the moon, emitting a terrifying aura that could not be approached. What's this? When the boss saw this scene, a look of shock appeared in his eyes. He had never seen such a strange scene. Chapter 72-94. Second brother also looked in disbelief at the scene in front of him. The two of them were clearly at the end of their rope, but for some reason, his heart could not help but tremble as he looked at the overwhelming darkness. This feeling was as if this power was completely beyond their control. Did you see that? That man is actually of the dark attribute. Is this the strength of a dark cultivator? Such a terrifying aura is too shocking. Why do I feel like it's the end of the world? It's too scary. Shocked gazes gathered on the two figures that were hugging each other. This scene was too shocking, and it left an indelible mark in their hearts. The Malachian fiend felt a little uneasy when he noticed this. It was Di Beichen's final struggle, but why was his aura so terrifying that even he felt that he could not resist it? What a joke! Qing Devil shouted coldly, dispelling all the uneasiness in his heart. He did not believe that Di Beichen had any extraordinary means. Today, he would definitely die by his own hands. The golden light was getting closer and closer, and its sharp breath blew Bailey Hongzhuang's long hair away. She could almost feel the smell of death. Rumble! A monstrous sound suddenly spread out, and the deafening sound seemed to want to burst everyone's eardrums. Everyone subconsciously used essence energy to protect their ears, but they were unwilling to miss that exciting confrontation. An astonishing aura that they had never felt before suddenly appeared in the thick darkness. In an instant, everyone only felt that there was a terrifying aura that completely suppressed them and looked down on all life. It was a kind of contempt, as if they were all ants. Under this invisible but terrifying pressure, no one could even raise their heads. What is this? Fear appeared in everyone's eyes. It was as if they had seen a true king. All their resistance seemed to be a joke in front of him. How dare you attack my master? Are you tired of living? A cold voice came from the darkness, exuding a cold, indifferent, and disdainful chilliness. Everyone stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move an inch. They couldn't see the creature's form at all. All they could see was a splash ink-black color. Their mental strength was also blocked the moment they tried to extend it. However, they clearly heard the word master. Master? Who was the master of such a creature? Everyone curled up in a corner, trembling, and cursing the madman in their minds. How dare he challenge the master of such a creature? Wasn't he courting death? Di Beichen was also surprised by the sudden appearance of the situation. He had only given the Azure Demon the final blow with the determination to die. However, what happened next was completely beyond his expectations. The thick black color gave him a vague sense of familiarity, but he had never performed such a move before. Even now, when he thought about it, he was not sure how he had performed it. When he heard that familiar, Tsundra voice, he was certain that it was his baby's voice. Baby? Master, I'm late. When everyone heard the conversation between Di Beichen and the terrifying creature, they all had a mental breakdown. Bao? Bao? How could such a terrifying creature have such a name? Master must be very careless to call it that. Chapter 72-95. This is the baby? Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. She had always wanted to see Beichen's contracted beast, and the appearance of this fellow had undoubtedly shocked her greatly. What kind of strength was this? At the very least, in the face of such an aura, she did not even have the slightest thought of resisting. This was because this was an aura that completely suppressed their existence. When the darkness dissipated, everyone could see the situation clearly. In the distance there was a bigger hole than the one Di Beichen fell into. Qing Devil fell into this hole. No one knew whether she was dead or alive. Everyone wanted to take a look at the contracted beast that could easily send an elementary immortal expert flying, but they were disappointed. They didn't see it at all. Master, baby can only stay for a short period of time after breaking through the barrier. I can't stay by Master's side. Master must protect yourself well. The baby's voice was filled with reluctance and worry, as well as an indescribable weakness. Di Beichen understood. Earlier, baby had said that there was a powerful Bai Sima blocking him. That was why he couldn't come to Di Beichen's side. Come to think of it, the situation just now was because it sensed Di Beichen's danger, so it tried its best to temporarily break through the barrier and come here. Lauda and Lao Er hurriedly ran into the pit. When they arrived, they found that Qing Devil had been covered by a layer of smoke and dust. No one knew whether she was dead or alive. The two of them didn't dare to waste any time. They carried Qing Devil on their backs and quickly fled. They practically didn't have the slightest ability to resist such a terrifying existence. If they continued to stay here, then they would undoubtedly die. Xiao So looked at the tall and handsome figure with a burning gaze. When she saw Di Beichen use that move, she felt as if she had seen the god of darkness. She had thought that Qing Devil could completely crush Di Beichen, and this was the right choice for her. However, when she saw Di Beichen's demeanor in the dark night and saw that he had such a powerful contracted beast, she realized that it wasn't like that, only this man was the most outstanding existence. She looked at Di Beichen holding Bailey Hongzhuang tenderly. The affection in his eyes was something she had never experienced from any other man. However, everything she wanted belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang. Jealousy almost devoured her completely. However, when Qing Devil was rescued, she had no choice but to quickly follow them. This was because she had no other choice but to rely on the Malachian demon now. Sudong, let's go. Xiao Se Wu didn't dare to delay for even half a second. Once Bailey Hongzhuang regained her senses, she would be finished. Xiao Sudong looked at Xiao Yu's eyes. I won't follow you to Qing Devil. Xiao So looked puzzled. Qing Devil has a powerful force in the immortal realm. We can live a good life as long as we follow him. Xiao Sudong shook his head and handed the secret key to Xiao So. No, it's your life, not mine. After what happened today, he found that Xiao So was no longer the sister he had always admired. Perhaps she had completely changed since a long time ago. He couldn't accept her point of view. What she had done and leaving with her was not the life he wanted. Xiao So was a little anxious. She wanted to persuade Xiao Sudong, but the situation was urgent. She didn't have time to say anything else. She could only say, "It's up to you. You've become a fool following Master." Chapter 72-96. Looking at Xiao So's figure leaving quickly, Xiao Sudong felt as if he had been freed. His sister, whom he used to worship, was gone forever. She, who only wanted to rely on Qing Devil, might have forgotten about her family. What she had done all this time was just because she was unwilling to accept her fate. He wouldn't forget his family's revenge, but he didn't want to use the same method as Xiao So. Even though he hated Di Beichen and his men to the core, he suddenly understood many things when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions before her death. Why were they always able to trust each other and were willing to sacrifice their lives for each other? This kind of cohesiveness was what the Xiao clan had always lacked. Xu Yu didn't say much. He knew that this young man already had his own plans. As his master, he didn't want to influence Xiao Sudong's decision, but he had to admit that such a decision made him feel very gratified. Bailey Hongzhuang actually noticed Xiao Se Wu's departure. She saw everything in her eyes, but on the surface she pretended not to care. She knew very well that both she and Beichen were already at the end of their rope. With Bao Bao gone, they no longer had anything to rely on, so they could only pretend to be confident and stand there without the slightest hint of fear. Fortunately, the moment Bao Bao made a move, the shock was enough. Qing Devil's men didn't have the guts to test their current situation and left in the blink of an eye. After Qing Devil and the others left, Bailey Hongzhuang also left Di Beichen's arms. They didn't rest immediately, but kept moving forward slowly in this state. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators had completely regarded Di Beichen and Yi Shiwen as killing gods. If such powerhouses wanted to kill them, it would undoubtedly be as easy as squashing an ant. Everyone dispersed in succession for fear of angering these two great beings. Otherwise, they would be completely finished. After the crowd dispersed, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen collapsed to the ground. They didn't even have the strength to move. Just a little bit more and they would have disappeared from this world. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen beside her. A bright smile suddenly appeared on her pale face. At least they were still alive. Di Beichen smiled knowingly. He held Bailey Hongzhuang's fingers tightly, unwilling to let go. At least they were still together. Xiao Bai noticed the changes behind it after it had left for some distance. Unwilling to give up, it ran back. When it saw that Di Beichen and Xiao Bai were still alive, it cried tears of joy. After Di Xiaofeng and the others returned to the Di family, they were quickly carried to their rooms to rest. The doctors rushed over to treat them. With such a serious injury, almost everyone in the Di clan was on tenterhooks. Lin Yunqing had already fainted when she heard the bad news. When she woke up, she couldn't help but secretly wipe her tears. She had been sentenced for so many years before Beichen came back. However, now that something like this had happened, it meant that Beichen and Hongzhuang would never come back. Those two children, Lin Yunqing looked at Di Yujue beside her. As soon as she opened her mouth, she was already sobbing. Di Yujue pulled Lin Yunqing into his arms. His usually stern and determined face couldn't hide the grief at this moment. Beichen had always been his pride, but he never thought that he would end up in such a situation. I didn't expect that Qing Devil was still alive. Xiao Sou is simply despicable. Chapter 72-97. Xia Wanrong could not suppress the anger in her heart. She really regretted her past actions. Fortunately, she thought that she was a good child a few years ago. She was really blind. Di Xiaofeng had already woken up and the doctor had already taken care of his injuries. Even so, even the slightest movement would still cause heart-wrenching pain. Xiaofeng, your injuries are very serious. Don't move for now, Di Linxian warned. Di Xiaofeng didn't insist. How are the others? Don't worry, the others are already being treated. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng felt more at ease. This time, all of them were heavily injured. It wasn't until he fought with an expert in the elementary celestial stage that he realized how big the gap between their strength was. As soon as the other party made a move, they didn't have the slightest ability to resist. The gap between the two was simply an insurmountable chasm. How terrifying was that? However, when he thought of Beichen and Hong Zhuang, his eyes turned red. His life was saved by the lives of his younger brother and sister-in-law. Xiao So has attached herself to Qing Devil. She won't let us go. We'd better take this opportunity to leave. Di Xiaofeng couldn't care less about his grief. The most important thing now was the safety of the whole family. He could almost imagine that it would not be long before Xiao So and the Azure Fiend appeared here. Even if they were restricted by the laws of heaven and earth, as long as they brought more people, the Di family would not be able to resist. Don't worry, I've already sent someone to deal with it. You just need to focus on recuperating, Di Yujue said. Ever since Di Xiaofeng told him about the situation before he fainted, he had already started to deal with it. The Di family had already become a target, and their gathering together was the biggest target. Only by dispersing them could the bloodline of the Di family be preserved. Not only that, he had already sent someone to inform the Lin family and the Bailey family. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. He understood that his father must have taken care of everything. I will definitely avenge Beichen and Hong Zhuang. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were bleeding. Until now, the tragic scene was still deeply imprinted in his mind. He couldn't forget it at all. During the time he was unconscious, this scene had never disappeared. He couldn't forget the last look in Hong Zhuang's eyes. When he thought that those two figures would become a memory forever, he felt unbearably heartbroken. Di Yujue looked at the pained Di Xiaofeng and patted him on the shoulder. We'll all avenge Beichen and Hong Zhuang. This isn't your fault. Don't shoulder everything. No. Di Xiaofeng shook his head, his eyes filled with unconcealable pain. I'm too useless. If he wasn't so useless, if he had also broken through to the elementary celestial stage, perhaps the situation wouldn't be so bad, and perhaps there would still be a chance to turn things around. He closed his eyes as tears flowed uncontrollably down his cheek. If he could, he wished that he was the one who died. After Ling woke up, she stared blankly at the ceiling. Even though the doctor told her that the scars on her face would take some time to heal, she didn't care at all. Until Bai Li Yanche's smile woke her up. Ling we're not dead. So what if we're not dead? Ling face was ashen. Hong Zhuang was dead. What was the point of them living? Chapter 72-98. No. Bai Li Yanche shook his head, unable to hide the excitement in his eyes. We're not dead. Ling was startled. Bai Li Yanche's smile was so dazzling that it dazzled her for a moment. It wasn't until she thought about it carefully for a moment that she finally understood. That's right. We're still alive. A dazzling smile bloomed on Ling lip. She didn't even care about the pain in her body. To her, this news was more useful than any elixir. They were Hong Zhuang's contracted beasts. If Hong Zhuang died, it meant that they couldn't live either. However, they were still alive, which at least meant that Hong Zhuang wasn't dead. Once Beichen died, Hong Zhuang couldn't possibly live alone. Therefore, they were almost certain that Beichen and Hong Zhuang were still alive. Although they didn't understand what happened after they left, and how Beichen and Hong Zhuang managed to survive in such a desperate situation. The fact that they were still alive was excellent news to them. Do you think that Xiao So captured them? Ling Er calmed down after a short moment of excitement. She had just experienced how perverted Xiao So was. If Hong Zhuang and the others had fallen into Xiao So's hands, it would be a fate worse than death. Bai Lianche was most worried about this possibility. However, after thinking about it carefully, he said, "Sister always has a lot of ideas. Even if they fell into Xiao So's hands, her situation wouldn't be too bad. If they had been humiliated, Bailey Hongzhuang would have already killed herself. Therefore, this situation was beneficial for them to think positively. I hope that's the case." A glimmer of hope bloomed in Ling Er's eyes. For the first time, she wanted to pray to God for the safety of Hong Zhuang and Beichen. Bai Lianche looked at Ling Er's serious expression, and a trace of gentleness flashed in his eyes. She had always been cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She didn't talk much, but he knew that his sister was very important to Ling Er. It was just that she rarely showed it. He found someone to inform Di Yujue and the others of this news. Sure enough, after everyone heard the news, the Di family, who had been immersed in grief, suddenly bloomed with vitality. At least, this news brought them a glimmer of hope. Lin Yunqing covered her mouth. Compared to her previous despair, her eyes were now lit up. "I hope that Hong Zhuang and Beichen can live well." This news was undoubtedly good news for Shangguan Yingying and the others. At that moment, even the pain on their bodies seemed to lessen a little, crossing immortal domain. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had already fainted after Xiao He and Xiao Bai returned. Xiao He and Xiao Bai carried one person on their back and looked for a restaurant far away to stay. The nearby buildings had already been turned into ruins, so they could only walk very far away. Fortunately, the cultivators in this area had seen Di Beichen and Xiao He's strength. Even though the two of them had fainted, no one dared to do anything to them. Even the restaurant they stayed in did not dare to charge them, so no one dared to stay there. The innkeeper and the waiters were trembling with fear in front of Xiao He and Xiao Bai. They were afraid that they would make a mistake and anger the two of them. The doctors did their best and did not dare to be negligent. Xiao He and Xiao Bai found Bailey Hongzhuang's pills and fed them to the two of them. Chapter 72-99. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that she had a very long dream. In the dream, it was boundless darkness. There was only a black passage, but she couldn't see the end of it at all. My dear," a gentle and familiar voice sounded in front of her. The feeling of relief dispelled her nervousness and fear, and even a light source appeared in the darkness. She approached the light source step by step. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she finally opened her eyes. She saw a pair of affectionate and gentle eyes. They were deep and charming, and the affection in them was so strong that it couldn't be dissolved. Looking at the familiar and handsome face and feeling the reassuring aura nearby, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "Di Beichen, you're awake." Di Beichen was relieved to see that Bailey Hongzhuang had woken up. He had noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to be having a nightmare. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and she looked like she was in pain. That was why he tried to wake her up. The moment he noticed the warm smile on her face, he felt completely relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the unfamiliar surroundings and couldn't help but ask, "Where are we?" "A restaurant in the crossing immortal domain." Di Beichen held a teacup in one hand and helped Bailey Hongzhuang sit up with the other. "Xiao He and Xiao Bai brought us here. Qing Devil and the others won't come again, right?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked worriedly. Now, Qing Devil was undoubtedly a big threat to them. Di Beichen shook his head slightly and let Bailey Hongzhuang lean in his arms. Then he said, "Don't worry, they won't come again for the time being." Although Bao Bao was only here for a moment, its attack was very powerful. Qing Devil was directly knocked unconscious. I think his injuries are more serious than ours, so he won't dare to cause trouble for us in the short term, unless he doesn't want to live anymore. Di Baichen looked confident. He didn't know how strong Bao Bao was before, but when he saw Bao Bao attack, he knew that Bao Bao's strength was beyond his expectations. That sort of strength was something that even Senior Zhongli and the others couldn't compare to. He couldn't even figure out where such a powerful contracted beast came from. Fortunately, with such a deterrent, Qing Devil would not dare to disturb them. They knew that Bao Bao only appeared for a short moment because it tried its best. However, Qing Devil didn't know that at all. She only thought that they were protected by such a strong demon beast. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This time, it's all thanks to the baby that saved our lives. Otherwise, we would have been finished. Yes. Di Baichen's eyes darkened. When he thought about the move he had used in the end and how it was related to the baby, he felt that there were many things that couldn't be explained. All of this was like a riddle that he couldn't understand at all. However, he believed that all of this would be solved sooner or later, and he would definitely figure it out. Bailey Hongzhuang got up and ate something first. Then she carefully checked her injuries. Her injuries were very serious. However, after these days of recuperation, Xiao He and Xiao Bai fed her a lot of elixirs. Her injuries recovered a lot. They weren't serious. Then she checked Di Baichen's condition and found that his injuries were mostly healed. Although they still needed to recuperate for a while before they could fully recover, the current situation did not affect their daily lives. Let's go back first. Big Brother and the others may think that our current situation is very bad. After we go back, they will feel more at ease. Chapter 7300. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's considerate and caring look, Di Baichen's eyes softened. He nodded. All right. The Chaos Ring was once again returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. With a single thought, the two of them returned to the Di family through the Chaos Ring. The moment the two of them appeared in the Di family, everyone's face was filled with surprise. Young Master! Young Mistress! Voices of surprise rang out one after another. Many people were so happy that they cried. Di Baichen had a completely different meaning to the entire Di family. He was the leader of the Di family. Even though the head of the family was Di Yujue, everyone knew that the goal of the younger generation was Di Baichen. Everyone was working hard to become an outstanding person like him. It was because of his appearance that the Di family had its current status and future. The young master and young mistress are back. Quickly inform the master and madam. Quickly inform the master and madam. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen felt a warm feeling in their hearts when they sensed everyone's concern and fervent gazes. This was everything that they had tried their best to protect. These smiling faces were what they wanted to protect. Soon, Di Yujue and the others rushed over. When they saw that the two of them were safe and sound, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Over the past few days, even though they knew that Baichen and Gu Shijie were still alive, they had no idea what the situation was like. Therefore, the huge rock in their hearts had never been lifted. It was only at this moment that they felt completely at ease. Baichen. Lin Yunqing stepped forward and hugged Di Baichen. Her face was filled with a relieved smile. You're both still alive. That's great. Di Baichen hugged Lin Yunqing with both hands. He felt that his mother had lost weight again. The little bit of weight that she had regained with great difficulty had disappeared along with the worry of the past few days. Mother, we'll be fine. Di Baichen's comforting voice sounded. He looked at Lin Yunqing seriously. I'm sorry for being unfilial and making you worry. Lin Yunqing's eyes were filled with tears as she shook her head repeatedly. No, you've always been my pride. I knew that my grandson wouldn't get into trouble so easily. Di Linxian laughed heartily as he patted Di Baichen's shoulder. You're indeed a good son of the Di family. Although Di Linxian looked calm and boorish, if one observed carefully, they would notice that he did not use much strength when patting Di Baichen. It was as if he was afraid that he would affect Baichen's injuries if he used too much strength. Xia Wenrong glanced at Di Linxian. She was too embarrassed to expose him in front of so many people. That day, when she heard that Bei Chen and Hong Zhuang were in trouble, she didn't forget that this old man was also secretly wiping his tears. "How are Big Brother and the others?" Di Beichen asked with concern. "You're all fine." "Of course we're fine." At this moment, a joyful and young voice sounded from behind. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and noticed that Di Xiaofeng, Wen Ziren, and the others were all standing there, looking at them with smiles on their faces. Even with just a glance, she noticed that Di Xiaofeng and the others were still wrapped in gauze. Shangguan Yingying was still leaning on her crutches. It was obvious that she had spent a lot of effort to pick them up. "You haven't recovered from your injuries yet. What are you doing out here?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked worriedly. When her gaze fell on Shangguan Yingying's legs and Ling Er's face, an uncomfortable feeling filled her heart. At that time, she had seen Xiao Sou's actions clearly, but she didn't have the chance to stop it. Chapter 7301. Seeing the worried look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, Shangguan Yingying's people all smiled. "Of course, I'm here to pick you up. How can we recover as soon as possible without you, the great doctor?" When Ziren's smile was the brightest, and the curve of his lips almost reached his ears. "I know you are lucky. How can it be so easy? It's really a waste of my tears." Our Yingying cried until she couldn't breathe. "You have to take a good look at her. Don't leave any sequelae." "Ziren." Shangguan Yingying glared at Wen Ziren. This guy liked to expose her shortcomings in front of everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang strode forward and walked to Shangguan Yingying's side. "Yingying has always been very concerned about me." Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with tears. She could never forget Bailey Hongzhuang's last look. If they were not lucky this time, it might be the last time she saw Hongzhuang. "Don't stand here. Let's go back to the house first." Lin Yunqing looked concerned. "All of you have not recovered from your injuries. If you catch a cold, it will be even slower to recover." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in front of her looked normal, but she knew in her heart that they must be seriously injured. They must have rushed back as soon as they recovered a little. They must need to rest for a while. Hearing this, everyone reacted and hurriedly called Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang into the house together. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to see everyone's condition after entering the house, but before she could do anything, Xia Wanrong stopped her. "Hongzhuang, you just came back. Your body has not recovered. How can you be busy with this?" Xia Wanrong glared at Di Beichen and said, "You didn't stop her." "Didn't I know that you would definitely stop me, grandmother?" Di Beichen smiled faintly. Xia Wanrong was also amused by Di Beichen's words. "You're getting more and more talkative. Hongzhuang, the doctors of the Di family are highly skilled. You don't have to worry too much," Wen Ziren said. "Look at all of us. Aren't we all recovering well?" Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze swept over everyone. Indeed, everyone seemed to be in good spirit. They must have recovered well. "Beichen, hurry up and tell us. How did you guys get out?" Di Xiaofeng could no longer hold back his curiosity. He was naturally overjoyed that Beichen and Hongzhuang could return safely. However, he really couldn't understand how they managed to escape from such a desperate situation. Could it be that some helper had appeared after that? As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes focused on Di Beichen, full of curiosity. Di Beichen smiled faintly. "In fact, even we didn't expect the final change. The one who saved us was the contract beast I met in the natural moat." Hearing this, Wen Ziren and the others couldn't help but be stunned. "When did you have another contract beast?" They hadn't heard of this before. The most important thing was that Beichen already had Xiao Bai and Xiao Xuanzi. How did he have another contract beast in the blink of an eye? "Previously, when I was in Heaven's Moat, I entered a cave and met a contract beast there. However, the contract beast was sealed in a barrier and couldn't appear by my side. I have always had doubts and even thought that the contract beast might have recognized the wrong person, so I didn't mention it." Chapter 7302. Di Beichen had always had doubts about Bao Bao. Bao Bao's appearance was too inexplicable. There was nothing related to Bao Bao in his memory. Even though Bao Bao had left a mark on his hand, the doubts in his heart had never disappeared. However, after experiencing this incident, he felt that Bao Bao might not have mistaken him for someone else. Even if he couldn't figure out the real reason, there might be some kind of connection between them. For example, the last move he used. After hearing all this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Beichen's encounters were really beyond their imagination. How difficult was it to find a suitable contract beast on a normal day? However, Beichen didn't need to look for one by himself. A contract beast had already come to his door. Is your contract beast very strong? Did it solve the crisis by itself? Bailey Yunyan asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Beichen's contract beast is not just strong, it's ridiculously strong. It only used one move, and Qing Devil was beaten to a pulp. His subordinates took it away directly. They didn't dare to stay for even half a minute. Now that she thought about it, she still felt the terror of Bao Bao's strength. It was a kind of demonic beast that was completely superior to them. If she had to make an analogy, it would be like a person from the upper world bumping into a person from the immortal realm. Perhaps this was the most appropriate analogy. Hearing this, everyone showed a trace of shock on their faces. It's so strong. It's so strong. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Then with this demonic beast accompanying Beichen in the future, won't we be invincible? When Ziren said with an exaggerated expression, "It's not as simple as you think." Di Beichen glanced at Ziren. "It hasn't broken the bounded domain yet. Because my situation was too critical, it used some special method to suddenly appear beside me. It only appeared for a few breaths of time before disappearing." He could feel Bao Bao's breath was disordered when it left. Obviously, Bao Bao was seriously injured in this attack. I see. When Ziren was suddenly enlightened, but he was not disappointed because of this. But no matter what, having such a demonic beast is an excellent trump card. That's great. I think Qing Devil won't make trouble for us for the time being after being taught a lesson. Di Xiaofeng let out a sigh of relief. In the past few days, not only were they worried about the safety of Beichen, but they were also worried about the future of the Di family. The news that Beichen brought back was undoubtedly excellent. It proved that they were safe for the time being. The Qing Devil wouldn't dare to cause trouble for the time being, so the Di family didn't need to evacuate their children. Everything could be kept as it was. Big brother, did you get the secret key? Di Beichen looked at Di Xiaofeng. The Qing Devil's appearance was too coincidental. If she hadn't appeared at that time, everything would have been resolved like the wedding. A trace of helplessness appeared on Di Xiaofeng's face. He handed a secret key to Di Beichen. The Qing Devil's appearance was really unexpected. I only got one of the keys at that time, and the other one is still in Xiao Sudong's hands. Is he with the Qing Devil now? Xiao Sudong is not with the Qing Devil. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice sounded. She clearly saw the situation at that time. Xiao Sudong and Xiao Sou parted ways. Chapter 7303. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. It was great that Xiao Sudong was not with Xiao Sou. However, their joy was soon extinguished by Bailey Hongzhuang's next words. I saw Xiao Sudong give a secret key to Xiao Sou. Xiao Sou left with Qing Devil, and Xiao Sudong left with Shu Yu. That's interesting. Bai Lianche raised his eyebrows. Xiao Sudong didn't go with Xiao Sou? He must have his own plans, Di Beichen said slowly. Xiao Sudong has changed a lot compared to before. After a series of sighs, everyone calmed down. At least, they were safe for the time being after this incident. Di Beichen and Qin Wanru were not in a hurry to leave. They stayed in the clan to heal their wounds. They would go back to the Duxian realm after they recovered. Xiao Sou left the Duxian realm with Qing Devil and others for the immortal realm. Qing Devil hasn't woken up yet. What should we do? Looking at Qing Devil, whose eyes were closed, Lao Si was full of worry. At that time, they found it difficult to move their faces when they felt the coercion of the contract beast, let alone Qing Devil, who had suffered a full blow. They had already found a doctor to treat the Azure Demon as soon as possible. They also fed him many precious pills without hesitation. After that strike, the doctor had already said that the Azure Fiend would have to rely on luck to survive. Fortunately, the Azure Demon's life was saved after they tried everything they could think of. However, he hadn't woken up yet. They couldn't help but worry about him. They didn't know how he was doing. That bastard is so powerful. We really underestimated them this time. Lao Si looked gloomy. The performance of Di Baichen and others had exceeded their expectations. They didn't expect that they would have such a backup plan. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. The appearance of that demonic beast is strange. Furthermore, such an existence seems to be completely beyond our understanding. Second brother had a puzzled look on his face. Even though the demonic beast had only appeared for a brief moment, he had clearly sensed the aura of a ferocious beast. They had been following Qing Devil in the immortal realm for a long time and had seen many experts. However, this was the first time they had seen such a terrifying aura. Indeed. Boss nodded. However, don't you think it's even more strange that a demonic beast of this level would recognize Di Baichen as its master? Di Baichen was not as powerful as the Qing Devil, but the evil beast almost killed the Qing Devil with one move. It was so strange. Second brother and fourth brother looked at each other with a blank look on their faces. After a long while, old fourth said, "Let's not talk about that. Isn't there a lot of strange things about that kid? Who could have such powerful strength when he had just broken through?" Hearing this, Lao Si and second brother thought for a while and agreed. So, they didn't ask further. "Let's take Master back first and find a better doctor to treat him. I believe he will wake up." Xiao Sou also looked at Qing Devil worriedly. He was the only person she could rely on now. If something happened to Qing Devil, she would have nowhere to go. Xiao Sudong and Shu Yu left together. She didn't even know where they were now. "Do you know what's going on?" Lao Si looked at Xiao Sou and asked. Xiao Sou shook her head hurriedly. "I don't know." Chapter 7304. The night was dark and the moonlight was hazy. Young Master Gong, Master has met with Qing Devil's men. A man in black stood in front of Gong Jun with a respectful look. "Did you make a move?" Gong Jun asked. "No." The man cupped his hands. "I've been following Master since he left. Initially, everything had been going smoothly. However, the Azure Fiend had suddenly appeared and ruined everything. I listened to your orders and didn't make a move until the last moment. Then, when I was about to make a move, Black Flame appeared." Gong Jun raised his eyebrows, but there wasn't the slightest bit of surprise between his brows. That guy hasn't come out of the enchantment for so long. Master is still reliable for once when he's in danger. The wizardry boundary guarding Black Flame has always been very strong. This time, Black Flame forced its way out and was injured. "It doesn't matter." Gong Jun waved his hand as if he didn't care about it at all. "It'll recover after a while. As long as Master is fine, it's fine." Looking at Gong Jun's indifferent face, the man couldn't help but mourn for Black Flame in his heart. Sure enough, in young Master Gong's eyes, other people or beasts were not important at all except for Master's safety. Gong Jun noticed that the man was still standing there and didn't leave. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Anything else?" "Young Master Gong, I heard that the fourth prince planned to look for the second prince after he couldn't find the master. The second prince disappeared with the master, so he should be appearing soon. The relationship between second prince and master was. Now, if second prince is roped in by fourth prince, I'm afraid master's situation will be very unfavorable." A trace of disdain appeared in Gong Jun's eyes. This guy really doesn't know when to stop. Back then, Master could easily wipe out everything. Does he think that Master can't be compared to him after reincarnating? Ridiculous. A ferocious and vicious aura erupted from Gong Jun's body. It was bloodthirsty and brutal. His insufferably arrogant aura caused the man in front of him to feel an increase in pressure. Everyone knew that young Master Gong, one of the master's right-hand men, was always full of smiles, but those who knew him would know how scary young Master Gong was when he was truly angry. "Keep an eye on the fourth prince. Don't let him find the second prince." "Yes," the man replied. "What should we do if we discover the second prince?" Gong Jun thought for a moment and said, "Kill him." "Yes." "Other than that, is there any movement from that woman?" Gong Jun asked. The man shook his head slightly. "I've already investigated the situation. Other than Bailey Hongzhuang, the only other woman by Master's side is Xiao So." "Then what is Xiao So's attribute?" "Light element," the man replied. Hearing this, Gong Jun's eyes narrowed. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. "Kill her. Young Master Gong, if that woman is really—" "Then if we do this, will it be?" Gong Jun muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "Master has already found the person he likes. Miss Bailey, who has the dark attribute, is the most suitable. Why do you have to worry about the past? Even if Master pursues the matter in the future, I will bear the responsibility." The man was startled. After noticing Gong Jun's resolute gaze, he nodded and said, "Yes, this subordinate will do it right away." Only when the man's figure disappeared into the black wood did Gong Jun quietly look at the crescent moon in the sky and fall into deep thought. "Master, if you really love Miss Bailey, then she should be able to fill your regret.